Black CEO's son denied care at ER hours. Later, she bought the hospital and changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The emergency room wasn't loud until she walked in. Fluorescent lights hummed, machines beeped steady, and then came the sentence that split the air in two. Pay, or get out. Dr. Preston's voice cracked across the room like a verdict. Every head turned. Even the heart monitor seemed to pause. The woman she was shouting at didn't move. Gray suit, black hair tied neat. A little boy curled against her arm, dressed in a Navy school uniform, eyes wide with fever and confusion. You heard me, the doctor barked again, stepping closer. We're not a charity. If you can't cover the deposit, leave. The woman just stared back, calm, measured, her silence heavier than any scream. Somewhere near the nurse's station, a phone camera clicked on. Someone was recording. The boy coughed once, soft but sharp enough to break hearts. The mother's hand tightened on his shoulder. He can't breathe properly, she said quietly. Please, just look at him. But compassion had left the room hours ago. Dr. Preston folded her arms, voice slicing through the crowd of nurses and patients. Rules are rules. You people always show up demanding special treatment. Not today. A ripple of discomfort ran through the waiting area. Someone whispered, "Did she just say you people?" Another turned away, afraid to get involved. But one nurse, young, nervous, froze mid-step, watching the scene unfold like a slow accident she couldn't stop. At the far end, an older man in scrubs muttered, "Let it go, Preston. It's just a kid." She snapped back. "Then maybe you can pay her bill too." The mother lifted her chin, eyes clear, voice still low. "You're humiliating yourself more than me." A gasp fluttered across the room. Even the nurse holding her phone lowered it, whispering, "She's not scared." "Security, doctor," Preston shouted. "Escort her out." A guard in a Navy uniform stepped forward, hesitation flickering in his stance. The woman didn't move. Instead, she drew her son a little closer, whispering something that only he could hear. His small fingers clutched the sleeve of her blazer, as if he understood that calm could be a kind of armor. The tension was a living thing, now pulsing, breathing, waiting to break. Dr. Preston jabbed a finger toward her. "You think silence makes you brave?" I said, "Get out." Finally, the woman spoke, not louder, but clearer. "If I walk out," she said, "it won't be me who regrets it." And for the first time, the doctor blinked. The calm was unnerving, too certain, too still. Because this wasn't the face of someone pleading for help. It was the face of someone giving one last chance. The boy coughed again. The mother rose to her feet, eyes steady on the doctor. No trembling, no tears, just quiet control. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. The mother adjusted her blazer and said one final thing, soft enough for the cameras to catch, sharp enough to pierce the air. "Touch my son again, and I promise, this entire hospital will answer to me." Fade to black. The ER fell silent, and somewhere deep in that silence, justice was already waking up. Before that moment, she hadn't looked like power. She'd walked into the ER like any other mother, no entourage, no designer flash, just a gray suit, a black leather bag, and calm eyes that saw everything. The nurses barely glanced up when she arrived. To them, she was another anxious parent from the wrong zip code. She'd carried her son in, whispering to him all the way, "In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're brave, baby." The boy's breath came in short bursts, his skin hot beneath her hand. She had called ahead. She had insurance. She had already paid her premiums. but the system wasn't built to see her as anything more than a problem in a blazer. "Name?" the receptionist had asked, not looking up from her screen. "Elias Carter," the woman said. "Severe cough, fever, he's struggling to breathe." The receptionist sighed. "We're backed up. You can wait or head to county." "And he's 5, she said quietly. "He can't wait." That was the first crack in her patience. The second came when the receptionist smirked and said, "Unless you've got priority insurance." She slid a black card across the counter. "I do." The woman's hand paused mid-type. Her smile stiffened. "We'll need to verify that." She walked away with the card, whispering something to a nurse in blue scrubs. Their laughter was low, but not low enough. And that's when Dr. Preston entered clipboard. Authority, bias disguised as policy. She didn't greet her, didn't look at the child, just glanced at the suit and said, "What's your employment status?" "Self-employed." The doctor nodded slowly, a smile curving where professionalism should have been. "Of course you are." The mother had seen this before. At 23, when she tried to buy her first condo. At 31, when a lender asked if her husband could co-sign, she didn't have one. Now, here again, in a room where her son's life hung between prejudice and protocol, Dr. Preston tapped the clipboard. "We'll need a deposit of $2,000 before we can admit him." The woman's voice stayed even. "Run the insurance. You'll be paid." "We've had fraud before," the doctor said. "I'm protecting this hospital." Protecting it from what? She thought, children who don't look insured? Behind her, the waiting room had gone still. A nurse whispered, "She's been here 15 minutes. No vitals taken yet." Another replied, "Orders from Dr. Preston. Don't start intake." The boy coughed again, harder this time. His small hand trembled. "Please," she said, "someone check his airway." But the doctor didn't flinch. "Ma'am, you're raising your voice." "No," she said softly. "I'm raising concern." Even then, she didn't shout. She never needed to. Her calm was starting to unnerve them, the kind of stillness that makes guilty people louder. From the far corner, a nurse with a warm accent spoke up. "Doctor, her policy is valid. I can see it in the system." Dr. Preston spun toward her. "Stay in your lane, Mariah." The young nurse swallowed, then muttered, "It's just wrong." That's when the mother knew the test had begun. She had come here for care, but the universe had brought her another kind of trial. And she wasn't the one being evaluated, the hospital was. The boy coughed again, small chest heaving. She reached into her bag for an inhaler, but his dosage had run out that morning. She'd called ahead precisely for that reason. She looked at Dr. Preston, then at the others, watching from the sidelines, waiting for someone else to act. "I'm not leaving," she said. The doctor scoffed. "Then you'll wait. Maybe next time, you'll come prepared." "Is Fred?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her voice stayed measured. "You just made this personal." A few nurses exchanged glances. One started typing something on her phone. Another whispered, "She's recording this." The tension shifted. It was no longer between doctor and mother, it was between power and truth. Before we go deeper, pause for a second. What would you do if your child needed help, and the people meant to protect him looked the other way? Comment below. Because for her, this wasn't just about one doctor. It was about a system that had decided who deserved to be heard. And tonight, that system was about to meet its reckoning. The longer she waited, the colder the room felt. Not from temperature, but from tone. Every voice in that ER carried a quiet kind of judgment, the kind that hides behind policy. Dr. Preston stood near the triage desk, tapping her pen like a metronome of control. "No ID, no verified payment, no treatment," she said. "She gave you everything." The younger nurse, Mariah, whispered. Preston's glare sliced through her. "And I said stay in your lane." The mother sat, her son's head pressed against her shoulder, his breathing shallow. The beeping monitors nearby kept rhythm with her patient's steady, measured, dangerously calm. "Ma'am," a man in a security uniform said carefully, "maybe wait outside. It's policy." She looked up, voice low but clear. "Then your policy is broken." And this 7. A few patients in the waiting area shifted uncomfortably. One woman whispered, "That's a child. They can't just ignore him." A man beside her murmured back, "They can if they don't see him as worth the paperwork." Dr. Preston turned, forcing a professional smile that fooled no one. "I understand you're upset, Ms. Carter," the woman replied. Preston scribbled it down slowly, recognition flickering in her eyes then vanishing. "Right, Miss Carter, I'll make a note. But shouting won't help your case." "I'm not shouting," she said. "You just don't like how calm sounds when it's sure of itself." That line silenced the room. Even the air vents seemed to hesitate. A receptionist whispered to another nurse, "Check the database again." The nurse frowned. "Her file's restricted, says executive level clearance. What does that mean?" The receptionist shrugged. "Probably a glitch. Run it later." On the bench, Elias coughed again, body jerking forward. "Stay with me, baby," his mother murmured. She grabbed a napkin, dabbed his forehead, then looked up at the staff still pretending not to see. Dr. Preston crossed her arms. "You people always think your emergencies are more important than anyone else's." The words landed like a slap. A patient near the vending machine muttered, "She really said that out loud." Mariah froze. "Doctor, that's not appropriate." "Neither is insubordination," Preston snapped. "You can clock out if you're uncomfortable." The nurse clenched her fists, fighting the urge to speak again. But her eyes, they stayed locked on the woman in the gray suit, who hadn't said another word, just waited, listened, calculated. The mother reached into her bag, took out her phone, and tapped a name, Carla Evans. The doctor scoffed. "Whoever you're calling won't change protocol." "Maybe not yours," she replied softly. The screen lit up with a single message, "Audit access ready." She didn't smile. "Not yet." Mariah leaned close, whispering, "Why aren't you leaving?" "Because if I do," she said, eyes never leaving the doctor, "the next woman like me will have to beg." A door opened at the far end of the corridor. A young paramedic stepped in, curious. "What's going on?" "Disruptive visitor," Dr. Preston said flatly, refusing to comply. The paramedic looked at Elias, small and trembling. "He's 5. That's not disruption, that's distress." Preston ignored him, turning to the front desk. "Cancel her intake form." The keys clacked loud in the silence. Somewhere deep in the database, a name was erased. That was the moment the shift began, subtle but irreversible. Because erasing her wasn't just an act of bias, it was an act of evidence. The mother exhaled slowly, gathering her son in her arms. Her voice came low, steady, almost a whisper. "You're writing the end of your own careers, and you don't even know it." Mariah swallowed hard. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman didn't answer. "Not yet." Dr. Preston sighed dramatically. "Security, please remove her before she causes a scene." But the truth was, the scene had already been made. Every eye in that ER was on her now, every phone angled discreetly, every conscience forced awake. Before we move forward, think about it. How many times have you seen arrogance wear a lab coat and call itself policy? Comment yes, if you've witnessed it, or if you've felt it. Because this was no longer about one mother and her son. It was about a system mistaking silence for submission. And that silence was about to end. The phone light flickered in Mariah's trembling hand. She hadn't meant to record, not at first, but something in the woman's stillness demanded proof. So she pressed record, camera low against her scrubs, capturing every word that dripped from Dr. Preston's mouth like poison disguised as protocol. The footage showed it all. The little boy's cough, the clipboard slammed on the counter, the way Preston's lips curled when she said, "You people." Mariah's pulse thudded in her ears. She'd seen bias before, whispered and subtle, but never this loud, never this proud. She took a step forward. "Doctor, with respect," she began, voice shaking but clear. "Her file's active. She has full insurance. You're ignoring it." Preston turned slowly, her smile cold and practiced. "Are you questioning me, nurse?" Mariah's throat went dry. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. "Yes," she said finally, "I am." The sound of that sentence landed like a gavel. Every patient, every orderly, Every guard turned to look. Doctor, Preston blinked, then chuckled, the kind of laugh that came from power unchecked for too long. Then maybe you'd like to explain to HR why you're interfering with medical protocol. Medical? Mariah said softly. This is prejudice. The doctor's face stiffened. Get out, right now. But the nurse didn't move. She stepped closer, trembling but resolute. You're breaking the oath you swore to. It's Frey. The mother looked up from her chair, eyes meeting Mariah's, a brief exchange that said thank you without words. For the first time that night, she wasn't completely alone. The guard shifted uneasily. Doctor, maybe we should just check the boy. 5 minutes, that's all. Preston snapped. Do you want to lose your job too? But his hand had already dropped from the radio at his belt. The tension cracked. It was no longer fear holding the room, it was shame. From across the waiting area, a middle-aged woman stood up, clutching her purse. This is wrong, she said. I've been watching for 20 minutes, and no one has helped that child. Another man added, I've got a daughter that age. If this was her, you'd be in handcuffs by now. Phones rose like a quiet army, their red dots blinking against the sterile white walls. In that moment, every bystander became a witness. Dr. Preston's voice quivered for the first time. Put those down. You can't film in here. But she was shouting against a tide she'd already unleashed. Mariah turned toward the crowd. Keep recording, she said softly. They can't erase everyone. The mother finally stood. Her son lay half asleep against her shoulder, breath rattling faintly. She looked at the cameras, at the crowd, and then back at Preston. You just told the wrong woman to leave, she said quietly. The words didn't roar, they cut, and the silence that followed was louder than any scream. Somewhere behind them, a phone rang. The hospital intercom crackled. Dr. Preston, administration is requesting you in conference room A. Her eyes flicked to the ceiling speaker, then back to the woman in the gray suit. She hesitated. The mother's phone buzzed in her hand. One message flashed on the screen. Protocol 7 ready when you are. She didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, she looked around the room, the nurses frozen in disbelief, the security guard lowering his eyes, the crowd slowly realizing they were part of something bigger. Mariah took a cautious step forward, voice low. Ma'am, who are you? The woman adjusted the boy's blanket, straightened her blazer, and met the nurse's gaze. Someone who built this place to save lives, she said, not to decide who deserves one. Mariah's breath caught. You mean? But before the truth could unfold, Dr. Preston cut in, voice sharp with panic. This is over. Security, remove her now. No one moved. Not the guard, not the nurses, not even the patients. The authority in Preston's tone had evaporated. For the first time, she looked small, not because the woman before her was bigger, but because truth had finally found an audience. The mother turned toward Mariah again, her voice almost gentle. Thank you for standing up. You'll need that courage for what's next. Mariah frowned. What's next? The woman's phone buzzed again, the same message flashing brighter this time. She smiled, calm, certain. Justice, she said. Before we continue, have you ever witnessed someone stand alone until others found their voice too? If yes, type I saw it in the comments. Because that's how revolutions begin. One quiet witness at a time. And in that hospital, the first one had just awakened. The sound came sharp and sudden, a cough that didn't stop. Elias's small body jerked forward, gasping, his little hand clutching his mother's lapel. The entire waiting room froze as he tried to breathe. 1, 2, 3 wheezing gulps of air, then nothing. The mother dropped to her knees, patting his back, voice steady but trembling underneath. Breathe, baby, come on, in through your nose. He tried, but his chest barely moved. Mariah lunged for an oxygen kit on the wall. But doctor, Preston barked, do not touch that. The words cracked like thunder. He's not admitted. You touch that tank, you're fired. Mariah stopped mid-motion, eyes wide with disbelief. You'd let a child choke because of paperwork? Preston didn't answer. Her silence was answer enough. The mother looked up, eyes no longer calm but crystal clear. Something inside her had shifted. It wasn't anger, it was resolve. "Step away," she said to the doctor. Her voice was low but final, like a door closing on mercy. Dr. Preston crossed her arms. "Or what? You'll sue us?" The boy's cough broke the silence again, violent, panicked. A woman in the waiting area started crying softly. For God's sake, someone help that child. But no one moved. Fear and shame had turned the staff into statues. And then the flashback hit her, sharp as glass. She was 12 again, sitting in another ER, watching her mother plead with a nurse after her father collapsed from exhaustion. The nurse had said almost the same words, "We can't help without proof of coverage." Her mother's face calm, composed, but breaking inside was the same one she wore now, the same stillness before the storm. That night, her father died in the waiting room. She learned 2 lessons. The system never apologizes, and silence when wielded right can still be a weapon. Back in the present, her jaw tightened. History wasn't going to repeat itself. Not with her son. She lifted her phone, pressed one button, and spoke quietly. "Carla, it's me. Activate Protocol 7. "Confirmed, ma'am," the voice replied through the speaker. "Live audit initiated. Network recording active." Dr. Preston blinked. "What did you just do?" "Something you should have done," the woman said. "I called for help. I won." A notification pinged across the nurse's monitor's hospital audit. Compliance review in progress. Files flickered, security feeds came online, and a name appeared at the top of every screen. Carter, Elias, priority patient. Mariah gasped. "Priority? That's CEO-level access." Preston's face drained of color. "That's impossible." The mother stood, calm once more, her child cradled carefully in her arms. "You wanted proof? Look around you." To Wesnan. Every computer in the ER now displayed her company's crest, Carter Health Group. Every terminal logged out automatically administrative override. Security's radio crackled. "Code white," a voice said nervously. "Corporate compliance on site in 5. Preston took a step back. "Who are you?" The mother adjusted her blazer, eyes locked on the woman who had humiliated her. "I'm the reason this hospital even has funding," she said softly. "And you just denied treatment to my son." Is quote. Gasps rippled through the room. Mariah pressed a hand to her mouth. She's the CEO?" The mother didn't answer directly. She didn't need to. The silence said it for her. Dr. Preston stammered. I didn't know." "That's the problem," she interrupted. "You didn't want to know." The boy coughed again, and Mariah stepped forward, this time without hesitation. She placed an oxygen mask gently over his face. "He'll be okay," she whispered. "He's breathing." 10. The mother nodded once, then looked back at the frozen doctor. "You let your bias become your policy," she said quietly. "Now it's going to become your consequence." The overhead speaker buzzed again. "Compliance officers have entered the building," the intercom announced. Dr. Preston's clipboard slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a hollow sound, the sound of power leaving the room. "Before we go deeper, think about this. What's worse, being ignored when you're powerless, or being disrespected when you're the one who built the system?" Because for her, this wasn't just a mother's breaking point. It was the moment she decided that mercy was over, and accountability had begun. Taught. Via Typ Voitu 600 Token Cho, Part 6. In Kol Finban GPT Mai, Tip Tuk Trochien, Det Sudung Finban Ku. The room changed temperature without warning. Not colder, just heavier, as if the walls themselves realized who they'd been standing against. Every monitor in the ER flickered again, the hospital logo replaced by a silver emblem, Carter Health Group Executive Override active. The mother no. The CEO stood tall, her son now breathing faintly under the oxygen mask. Mariah held steady. Her voice was calm, surgical, stripped of all emotion. "Dr. Preston," she said, "you have exactly 1 minute to call pediatric care, or you'll be explaining this to corporate ethics yourself." The doctor's lips parted, but no sound came. Her authority, once booming, had turned into a fragile echo. The receptionist whispered to a coworker, "Is this real? Did she just say corporate ethics?" Mariah didn't look up. "It's real," she murmured. "And it's happening now." The mother tapped her phone again. "Carla, confirm, hospital command access." A voice replied instantly, steady, professional. "Confirmed, Miss Carter. Compliance team en route. Internal feed is live. Every word recorded." The words "every word recorded" ricocheted through the ER like a quiet explosion. Suddenly, everyone straightened their posture, realizing the cameras above weren't just decoration, they were witnesses. Dr. Preston tried to recover her tone. This is highly irregular. You can't just—" "I can," the woman interrupted softly, "because I wrote the regulations you're quoting." It wasn't anger. It was precision. The kind that cuts cleaner than rage ever could. She turned toward Mariah. "Continue oxygen. Page respiratory care." "Yes, ma'am," Mariah replied without hesitation, already on the line. The crowd in the waiting room had gone silent, a living gallery of disbelief. A man whispered, "She owns the place?" A woman beside him whispered back, "No, she is the place." On the monitors behind them, the audit feed rolled live. Complaint records, staff interactions, notes flagged under bias incident. The files weren't just digital, they were confessions. The mother walked to the reception desk, her heels soft but deliberate against the tile. "You said earlier you were protecting this hospital," she said to Preston. The doctor's eyes darted nervously. I was following procedure." "No," the CEO said, leaning in just slightly. "You were following prejudice." The words landed like a verdict. Mariah looked up from the boy, whispering, "He's stabilizing." The mother nodded once. "Good. Keep him close. I'll take care of the rest." She dialed again. "Carla, mark every instance of patient denial by staff in the past year. Pull emergency room intake data and link it to demographic records." Carla's voice responded instantly. "Already underway. 73 flagged cases so far." A low gasp rippled across the staff. 73. Dr. Preston's knees seemed to soften. "This isn't fair. You blindsided us." The CEO turned to her, expression unreadable. "No, doctor. I gave you the same chance you gave my son, an opportunity to do the right thing before someone was watching." A nurse from the back whispered, "She's auditing live." "Not auditing," the CEO corrected gently. "Reforming." She walked back to her son, brushing a hand over his hair. His breathing had steadied, slow and rhythmic again. The sight of him grounded her, kept her from turning fury into cruelty. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. She looked up again, eyes sweeping the room. "From this moment forward," she said quietly, "every decision you make will be recorded not for punishment, but for proof." Mariah's voice broke the silence. "Ma'am, corporate security just arrived." The glass doors slid open, and 2 officers in tailored suits entered, badges glinting under fluorescent light. They didn't look like enforcers, they looked like auditors of truth. "Dr. Preston," one of them said, "you've been requested in the compliance office. Now." Her face went pale. I didn't mean harm." The CEO's gaze stayed fixed on her. Intent doesn't erase impact. The guards motioned gently toward the hallway. Preston moved slowly, the echo of her heels far louder than her voice had ever been. When the doors closed behind her, the mother finally exhaled. She crouched beside her son, smiling softly. "You're safe now, baby. You did so well." Then, standing again, she addressed the room not just to the staff, but to the story itself. "Let this moment serve as a reminder," she said. "Power means nothing if it can't protect the innocent. Before we continue, tell me this. If you had the power to fix a system that once ignored you, would you show mercy or make an example? Comment your answer below. Because tonight, she wasn't just healing her son. She was healing a system that had forgotten how to care. For a few long seconds, the room was silent, except for the soft hiss of the oxygen tank. Then the compliance officers turned to her, their expressions shifting from duty to recognition. "Ma'am," one of them said, "your authorization is confirmed. Carter Health Group's command channel is active." The words weren't loud, but they hit like thunder. "Doctor." Preston froze halfway to the door. "Carter Health Group?" she whispered. The mother, "No." The CEO finally looked up, meeting every pair of eyes in that room. "Yes," she said quietly. The hospital you just tried to throw me out of belongs to me." The sound that followed wasn't applause, it was disbelief. Phones lowered. People stopped breathing. Even the walls seemed to listen. "You called security on the CEO's child," said one of the compliance officers, his voice measured but cutting, "and then refused treatment." Mariah's hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. The doctor stammered. I didn't know." "That's the point," the woman interrupted. Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried the weight of every patient ever dismissed for looking like her. "You never know. You assume. You decide who's deserving by how they dress, how they speak, or the color of their skin, and you call it professionalism." Dr. Preston's face broke. "I was just doing my job." "It's might of this dough." "No," the CEO said. "You were doing what too many people call policy when they mean prejudice." The cameras on the ceiling blinked red, recording everything. Corporate compliance was watching live. HR, legal, the board. Every second was being logged into the system she built to hold people accountable. One of the officers stepped forward. "Dr. Preston, you're relieved of duty pending review. Turn in your badge and pager." End quote. She obeyed, silent, pale, hands trembling as she placed them on the counter. The CEO turned to the staff still standing behind the desk. "You all had the chance to act," she said, not in anger but in truth. "Only one of you did." Her eyes found Mariah. "Thank you," she said softly, "for remembering what medicine is supposed to be." Mariah's voice cracked. "I just couldn't stay quiet." "Good," the CEO replied, "because silence is how this place got sick." End quote. A murmur rippled through the crowd, half shame, half awakening. Patients began to clap, not for spectacle, but for recognition. One man in the corner said, "Finally, someone who didn't back down." The CEO looked around, her tone calm but absolute. "This hospital will not run on fear," she said. "Not under my name, not ever again." She adjusted her blazer, lifted her phone, and gave one final command. "Carla, note this in the record effective immediately, Dr. Preston is terminated for violation of care standards and ethical misconduct." "Logged and confirmed," Carla replied. "Before we go on, ask yourself this. If someone told you you didn't belong in a place you built, would you walk away? Or would you remind them who you are?" Because at that moment, she didn't just reveal her title. She reminded the world that quiet power doesn't whisper, it echoes. The echo of her words hung in the air, heavier than the hospital lights above. Dr. Preston stood frozen, badge trembling in her hand. The red, "Access Revoked" alert blinked across every monitor. Her authority, once absolute, had been reduced to a line of code. The compliance officer stepped closer. "Doctor, please step aside." Her lips parted, as if to protest, but nothing came out. She looked around, searching for allies among her staff, but no one met her eyes. The same nurses who once followed her orders now looked down, ashamed. The mother, the CEO, didn't need to shout. Her silence filled the room louder than any command. "Security," she said quietly. "Escort her to the administrative wing. Collect her access card and notes for the legal audit." "Yes, ma'am," one of the officers replied. As Preston was led out, the boy stirred against his mother's shoulder, whispering weakly, "Mommy, are we going home?" She smiled softly. "Soon, baby. But first, we fix what's broken." The crowd had shifted from tension to awe. A man near the window whispered, "She's really doing it." A nurse muttered, "I've worked here 6 years. Never seen accountability walk through the door like that." Mariah was still beside the boy, monitoring his breathing. "His levels are stabilizing," she said, glancing up. The CEO nodded. "Good. Keep him under observation. He's priority 1. She turned toward the front desk. "Now," she said, her voice low but unwavering, "someone call housekeeping. We're clearing the air in this room literally and ethically." A nervous laugh rippled through the staff, unsure if it was safe to breathe again. The receptionist, the same one who had mocked her minutes ago, spoke timidly. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't know." The CEO looked at her, calm but unsparing. "You didn't want to know," she said. "But that changes today." She gestured toward the waiting area. Every patient here will be seen immediately. No deposits, no questions, just care. The nurses blinked, processing what they'd just heard. Mariah moved first. You heard her triage everyone. Let's go. The staff, one by one, began to move not out of fear, but out of relief. The CEO turned to the compliance team. Send a statement to the board, she said. Effective immediately. Horizon Memorial is under full Carter Group review. All staff bias complaints are reopened. Into Covero, understood, said one officer, already typing into his tablet. She picked up Dr. Preston's clipboard, looked at the scribbled notes, then tore the top page cleanly in half. For years, this hospital has hidden behind paperwork. Today, the paper answers to people. Her son reached for her hand. Mommy, can we go home now? Almost, she said, kneeling to meet his eyes. Home's not just a place, Eli. It's where people are safe. I'm making sure everyone here has one. It's mine, 7. She stood again, straightened her blazer, and looked around the ER one last time. This was no longer the scene of humiliation, it was transformation. Before we continue, tell me this. If you had the power to correct a public wrong, would you forgive, or would you reform? Comment below. Because she wasn't here for revenge, she was here to rebuild. And tonight, justice had finally clocked in for its shift. The ER, moments ago a battlefield, now felt like a sanctuary reborn. Nurses moved with purpose, voices calm, steady, human again. The fluorescent light that once exposed cruelty now illuminated something different: accountability. The mother stood in the center, her gray suit rumpled from the night's chaos, her eyes soft but unyielding. Her son slept in Mariah's arms, the oxygen mask resting beside him, his breathing even and peaceful. The storm had passed, but the lesson had only begun. She stepped forward, facing the staff, the patients, the cameras still blinking red from the ceiling. Her voice carried the stillness of someone who had waited years to say this. Every person who walks through these doors, she began, deserves dignity before diagnosis. Respect before routine. You don't have to look like someone's idea of a patient to deserve care. The words fell into the room like rain after drought. Some nodded, some cried, some simply listened. She continued, what happened tonight will not be buried under apologies or paperwork. It will be the start of reform, from hiring to triage, from tone to policy. Every system that lets bias breathe will be rewritten starting now. Mariah blinked back tears. You mean, all of it? All of it, the CEO said. Because healing starts with honesty. Behind her, the compliance officer handed her a digital tablet. Ma'am, he said, board members are requesting a statement for the record. Resent. She glanced down, then back up at the room, her audience, her witnesses, her reason. This is my statement, she said. She lifted her phone toward the ceiling camera. For years, I believed progress came from quiet meetings and policies printed on expensive paper. But tonight reminded me change doesn't start in offices. It starts in rooms like this, when ordinary people refuse to stay silent. She paused, her gaze softening as she looked at Mariah. When one nurse chose compassion over compliance, she reminded this place what medicine is meant to be: mercy, not measurement. The nurse's eyes filled. The staff began to clap slowly at first, then stronger. Even the patients joined, applause rippling through the ER until it sounded like redemption itself. The CEO raised her hand, the room falling quiet again. Let this hospital stand as proof, she said. We don't heal with silence, we heal with accountability. From this day forward, this will be a place where every life matters, not because of who walks in, but because of who we choose to be. She turned to Mariah. You'll oversee that transition. Effective immediately, you're appointed head of patient equity and training. Mariah gasped. Me? The CEO smiled. You earned it the moment you chose what was right over what was safe. And sighed. The cameras caught the moment: 2 women, 2 generations, standing in the same light where injustice had just been undone. The CEO knelt, kissed her son's forehead, and whispered, You can rest now. The world's a little better tonight. Then she looked back one last time, voice steady, final. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. Before you scroll, take a second. If you believe compassion should never depend on color or class, share this story. Because healing isn't just medicine, it's justice.